So to do the lap zipper, we're gonna start, okay. We're gonna start by putting our fabric right sides together, and we're gonna sew closed our seam. So if you have notches on your fabric, you'll sew a seam right below your notches. So my notches are right here.
Our notches are for the bottom of the zipper is what you're saying?
It can be, but it's probably, usually your pattern has notches on it.
Oh, just the pattern. Oh.
Yeah, so I did give you guys a pattern that has some notches, so just notch where the pattern is. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use 5/8 inch seam allowance. If I wanted to cheat, I would use a wider seam allowance. I think this is so much easier with more seam allowance.
You had us do a 1 inch in the
Oh, I did? Yay! Okay, let's do 1 inch. That's way easier. Perfect. 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm gonna back stitch right here and sew straight down for my seam. And then I'm not putting in a basting stitch at the top. I'm doing this one a little bit different than the last one, okay? So getting my pin in right here. Here I go. You can use a regular zipper foot, or you can use, you can use a regular foot. I already have the zipper foot installed, so I guess I'll just sew with the zipper foot. Either way works. Okay, so I'm doing a 1 inch seam allowance. Cool, yay. So there's my notch. I got my needle in right next to my notch. I got my raw edge lined up to the 1 inch on my engraved throat plate. I'm going to sew forward. I'm going to back stitch. My stitch length is about a 3, 2.5, 3 is fine. And I'm going to back stitch. So that's the bottom of my garment. Make sure my take up lever is in the highest position. Pull up my presser foot and pull towards the back. Okay, cool. I'm going to press open my seam, but I want to keep pressing it like if I did continue sewing it. So I want to press my seams open. In this case, I have a 1 inch seam allowance. You do the exact same thing if your seam allowance was 5/8 inch, whatever your seam allowance is. So
Why wouldn't we baste it?
okay, so there we go. So now when I look at this guy, when the grain line and everything's relaxed, it meets up perfectly, right? But the beauty of our overlap zipper is that he covers some top stitching right here. When the lap is laying flat, it covers that top stitch. So in order for it to overlap about 1/8 inch, we have to roll out this guy about 1/8 inch, because when the fabric's all relaxed, it's going to match up like this. But I want a little bit of fabric underneath here so that I could do a top stitch that you won't see. Okay. That's kind of the trick. So what I'm going to do, I love that I ironed it too, because now I'm going to see the iron mark as a guide. I'm just going to roll it out about 1/8 inch is fine. And as close as you can to the bottom, because you don't want to pucker at the bottom, so it kind of like zeroes into nothing at the very bottom. So if you look really close, you should be able to still see your folded line that we just ironed. But when this guy's closed, he's going to meet the folded line, but now when I open him, he's kind of covering a little bit. Do you see that? That's the key to success in the lapped zipper, is that step. So now I grab my zipper and I want to, just place it on top of my twill tape pretty close to my teeth. And I'm gonna pin it to the twill tape. So now I'm getting my presser foot And I'm gonna back stitch up here, and I'm just gonna sew straight down, and I'll back stitch right before I get to that point. So this stitch line should be in between that little folded line that we press at the iron and the new fold that we just unrolled out, okay? So that's why it's real important to have a nice thin zipper foot for this part. Okay, so here I go to the machine. So, I mean, here's two different zipper feet. Either one should work. This one's probably gonna work a little bit better for what I'm trying to do right now. But this guy should work also because it's so thin. So I'll just use, he's already on, I guess I'll just use it. Take out my pin. And I back stitch. And I back stitch again. Get my take up lever up high, pull out. You can see kind of where I stopped. Okay, so there's my folded line. So this is just barely in my folded line. You can't really see, it's like unpressed already. I probably could have gotten a little bit closer if I used this presser foot. But I think this one will work just fine. So I just put in that top stitch, and it should be in between that folded line and the new rollout. And then now again, when this guy naturally closes, he's supposed to meet that old fold line. And when that happens, it should cover that black top stitch I just did. Okay, so it laps over. I think I was a little far at the bottom because I feel like I can kind of see it at the bottom. That's a bummer. Okay. So now I'm gonna pin it so it just barely covers my little top stitch. Awesome, yay. That's great. Cool. So this is where I want my fabric to be when I'm done stitching it. So now what I'm gonna do, because I know right now the right side of my twill tape has been sewn to my garment, but now I need to sew the left side. And basically what we do, you just sew this L straight down and it should catch your twill tape. And then you do a pivot turn and you come over, and in most cases you will sew over your zipper teeth, so you want to be really careful. But if your zipper stopper's right here, then you'll be sewing underneath it. But do pivot turn and then you stop right at the seam and then you're done. So sometimes to help me know where to stop, I'll try to figure out where is my notch. Okay, here's my notch, so I'm supposed to only sew up to my notch. And I'll put my tape at the bottom and I'll line it up straight, and then I sew on this side of my tape and I do my pivot turn, and that helps me sew a straight line. So I want to make sure I put my tape in the right place, because if you sew too wide, you're not going to catch your twill tape. Let me make sure I'm actually catching it. Yeah, it looks like I'll be catching my twill tape with this tape, because tape you can buy in different widths. Yeah, this guy catches it, so that's good. I guess I could measure how wide it is. We do have a 1-inch seam allowance though. Okay, so this particular tape is 3/4 inch wide. Okay, back stitch, sew, pivot turn, sew across, and be done. So let's do that. Okay, back stitch. Okay, getting to the end, do my pivot turn, needles down, presser foot up, turn, and then I'm gonna do it by hand. I think I might have to go over my teeth. Yeah, I had to go over my teeth, so I'm doing it by hand. Okay, cool. There we go. I changed my dial to a short stitch, like a 1. I could probably do one last little stitch. Let me see. Yeah, that worked. And then I don't think I'm gonna, I guess I could back stitch. Let me try. Yeah, so I just did a little back stitch. There you go. You could always hand tie a knot for a back stitch too. Pull it out, and take a look at it. Take off my tape, and there we go. Yay, and it caught. You want to make sure it actually catches in. All right, that's a lapped zipper application for that guy. Now this part, if your zipper's longer, you can actually cut it off. So I'm gonna get rid of my stopper. There we go. So now my zipper is shorter.